that?
That was a little wave and a point.
Yeah. Cool.
What's cracking, everyone?
Welcome to Ask a Reporter. I'm wearing a different mask to usual, and it feels more like
just keeping it
intense.
fresh.
Yeah. I usually wear these ones.
Yeah.
So I feel like I
As
can't
in
be
it's
heard
just
as
like-
much. Yeah, it's like
just
more
strapped
material.
on.
Yeah.
Like
there
real
you go.
Bane-esque.
Yeah, exactly. Bane-esque, yeah. Oh, welcome everybody to Ask a Reporter this Friday. Thanks for joining us. I hope you've had a good week. I'm Amelia.
I'm Cale. Hello.
And we are going to be talking about
Endurance 22, an expedition down in Antarctica at the moment to find a really famous shipwreck, one of the most famous, shipwrecks in the world, and that's the shipwreck of Sir Ernest Shackleton, who was an English/Irish Antarctic explorer.
when we were doing that thing, I thought we were going to just
keep going. I think we do that every time.
You really ruined
Ask a
that.
Reporter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought
So
it was the whole thing we were going
guys.
to be like,
Back and forth.
today I'm having lunch with
Sir Ernest Shackleton.
Shackleton. All right, we'll stop that now. Yes, all right. So, should we jump into it, Kate?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it because we've got
Let's
heaps of
do it.
questions as usual.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for sending your questions
Thank
through.
you so much for sending your questions through. All right, we've got new ones coming in
Oh,
as we
beautiful.
speak. Okay, I'm gonna go straight back though
Yeah,
to
go
the
to
top,
the top.
here. Yeah, and
Sounds
we'll go
good.
to some kids who wrote in nice and early.
Mm-hmm.
So Yuka homeschooling are keen as mustard.
Keen as mustard.
Have you ever heard that saying? Anyway,
You've never heard keen as mustard?
No, I was asking if they have.
right.
No, I use it
Yeah,
constantly.
okay.
Probably
Yeah,
too
yeah.
much.
Yeah. Does it come from...
I have no idea. I really
'Cause
don't know where it
Keen's-
comes from.
Keens do... I think it's a brand
A mustard?
that do mustard powder.
I did wonder if that was a
mustard.
thing. Like, it's like a 50s reference.
Yeah,
surely, like
I
60s.
think so.
Anyway,
you
gosh,
go.
do you think Shackleton
Let's
lost
do a
King's
mustard story. Yeah.
Maybe.
You never know.
Hey, tell us first of all, what was it like filming when you were being
Yeah, it was good.
Shackleton?
It was good fun. I did a terrible accent and I acted terribly, but hey.
I was going to say, let us know what you think of Cale's British accent.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the story, make sure you go watch it. But
Let us know
basically,
if you are British
we set
and
up
what your opinion is.
we set up a makeshift Antarctic little tent,
Yeah.
or old style tent with a few canvases, and I think the worst part was that I was like rugged up in a jumper and a skivvy and that big coat, and it wasn't cold. Like we were just
Yeah.
just in a studio, and the lights are pretty hot
Oh, it's
as well.
boiling.
So
Kale, I did this yesterday.
I was sweating bullets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's a little sneak peek
Yes,
for next
yeah, a little
week's station.
sneak
Yeah, we're
peek.
doing another Antarctic episode.
Yeah.
Because the government's putting a whole lot of money, the Australian government's putting a whole lot of money into Antarctica. So we also got all rugged up again, and I was...
It gets warm, doesn't
I
it?
wore, I think, the same jacket as you, and I was sweating. Anyway, okay, so we're going to go back to the top again. Let's go to Yuka homeschooling. So Lara from Yuka says, how old is the ship? And while you're answering that, I'm going to go switch masks because this one's annoying.
Okay, no
I'll be
worries.
right-
Bye, Amelia.
Bye, guys.
It's just me, guys. Hello. So, how old is the ship? Well,
Don't touch the tablet, that's fine.
so the ship was built in 1912, and then it first set sail in 1914 down to Antarctica. So if you do the math there, what is it, 1912? So it's 110 years old, but it's not in operation anymore because it's down the bottom of the Weddell Sea at the moment. So it was built in 1912, set sail in 1914, and then unfortunately sunk in 1916.
So how old was it then? I missed that.
So
Like-
110. because it's
110.
built-
110.
No. Am I doing my maths right? Yeah. 1912, 110.
Yeah, cool. So do you want to actually have a little look at it because we've got
Yeah,
some,
let's have a look.
Yeah, some vision. Let's check it out.
Or 1914 would be that vision there. So
Yeah.
incredible
It's
vision.
amazing. It's really good vision.
Yeah.
So how big is the Endurance? That's from Ella from
Yeah.
homeschooling.
Thanks, Ella. So the Endurance is 42 metres long. So it's quite a long ship. I think it's about 12 or so metres high, but 42 metres long. So
42 metres.
quite a long boy. I'm trying to gauge how to visualize that. All I can think about is if you're kicking a goal from the 50-metre line in footy, take 10 metres in, and that's 40 metres.
I knew it was going to be a sport reference.
Yeah.
Classic Cale. Not really, because you're into science too, so you never know what you might come out with.
It's not just a jock, you know.
Hey, you said it. All right. Sport's all right. Love sport. We all know I love sport. Okay, so Kana from Bankstown West Public School says, did Shackleton have a best friend?
Did Shackleton have a best friend?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but he was.
He seemed to really like the other dude that you
I was
were
about to say, he was
yeah.
certainly quite fond of Frank Worsley, I think, and so Frank Worsley was the captain of the ship, so Shackleton was the expedition leader, and then you have to have a captain to captain your ship and the crew, and that was Frank Worsley, who he took along on his rescue missions and all of that when the ship did sink, and writes about him very fondly in his journal, in his diary. So let's say Frank Worsley was his best friend.
Maybe his bestie. Let's say Shackleton's
bestie pals, yeah.
Do you know how many people were on the ship, Cale? That's a question from Martin, AGBU, which is Alexander Primary School.
So Joe might have to help us out here with the exact number, but I think it's around 38 people were part of the expedition. And all 38 of them were rescued and saved.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about what actually happened there a little bit later if there's some questions.
Yes, there definitely will be. Okay, so let's talk about... this is a question that's also crew related.
Yeah.
This is from Eve from Camp Hill State Infants and Primary School, 5C. Hello, Eve, and hello, 5C. What food did the crew eat to survive?
27 men it was. They didn't eat 27
men.
Oh, wow, yeah, 27
men
aboard the ship. That was going back to the last question.
Oh, man. Cale, I was like, wait, did I miss something? I thought everyone was okay on this one. And 69 dogs.
And 69 dogs.
Yeah,
so a lot of men, a lot of
way
dogs.
More dogs.
Way more
dogs. They need them, didn't they? They needed them. Yeah.
So they would have eaten really not great food, not people, but I actually forgot to have a look at what they ate before.
Oh, that's okay.
Before jumping on, but I would say it'd be a lot of like biscuits or dried food and
right.
Stuff that lasts a long time.
Yeah. But also you have lots of snow, so couldn't you just bury some stuff for a bit, come back to it?
It's true, yeah, bury it. Yeah.
If you've ever watched that show that I know you have watched, Alone.
I didn't get too far into it, but I have watched a bit, yes.
And they're always when it's... Yeah, you can smoke some fish and...
There you go.
Chuck that in the snow for a while
on what they did eat, so... Obviously, the whole story is that they were on the ice. The ship, the Endurance, got stuck in the ice. They wanted to make the first land crossing of Antarctica. So essentially, they were going to park the ship on one end of Antarctica, and then they had another crew waiting for them around the other side of Antarctica, and they were going to walk all the way across and make the first land crossing. So there was actually two crews. One was waiting for them on the other side. That didn't happen. The ship got stuck in the ice and then eventually sank, but then they sailed to a place called Elephant Island. And the reason that they went there was, one, it was probably the closest island, but two, there was lots of seals and I think they also said penguins on that island as well, which they said would be good food sources. So,
oh, no.
It's a bit grisly, but that was one of the reasons that they went to Elephant Island.
Yeah, okay.
So there you go.
So about the boat being stuck, Anne Lee from Matthew Pierce Public School, Anne Lee says, why can't you move the boat?
Yeah, so...
What happened?
Basically, every winter in Antarctica, they got stuck in what's called sea ice. And sea ice is essentially what it sounds like, is when the ocean or the sea freezes over. And it can be really hard to tell how thick that sea ice is. So the ship was designed to break through a certain amount of ice. I'm not sure exactly how much it was meant to break through, but... icebreakers these days have a certain limit to how much ice they can actually break through, and if they hit really thick sea ice, sometimes the ship can get stuck, and the ice can kind of move a bit like tectonic plates. and they can kind of move and shift and slowly start crushing the ship if it's stuck, which is what happened to the Endurance, is that the ice moves in and it kind of forms ridges around the Endurance.
Whoa, that's so interesting. Okay, so Sebastian was under the impression that the boat sank. Did the boat sink?
It did
Sebastian
sink.
from the Sycamore School in Brisbane?
Yeah, so eventually you can imagine
So
it was
why did the
kind
boat
of...
sink? Sorry, was the question. Yeah.
Yeah, so underneath the sea ice is the sea. So as the sea ice is kind of crushing the ship, it's kind of overtaking it and pushing the ship underneath, and eventually the ship hits the water and sinks to the bottom.
Oh, did it? It did completely sink. Oh,
Yes.
Sorry, I totally forgot that. You were right, Sebastian. Okay, so this is a little. Actually, no. I'm going to go for William's question. William from Will. Is
From
the
Will.
school name. So I don't know. Will, great name, great school. My question
Maybe that's
is.
why he goes there.
Yeah, maybe that's
This is
why. Maybe he invented the school.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's the head of the school. My question is, how did you find out about the coordinates for the ship? I mean, that was years ago. How do you still have the coordinates? It's a really interesting question, William.
Yeah, so the coordinates of the ship were written down by old bestie Frank Horsley, the captain of the
Shackleton's
ship.
bestie.
So when the ship was sinking, he jotted down the coordinates in his diary, which he kept very safe and close to him. So he had those coordinates written there, and then because they all survived, he had his diary with them, and the diary is actually in the British Museum, I'm pretty sure. So they just read his diary.
Yeah.
A bit nosy, but...
It is a little, isn't it? I feel like when people went to sea or on expeditions and
Yeah.
exploring, they sort of knew that whatever they wrote was going to be seen, right?
Yeah, I guess
You're not going to
so.
say too much in those diaries,
No.
you know?
I think it's more useful tips and tricks
Yeah.
rather than your deepest and darkest secrets.
Dear diary, today I thought
Yeah.
about eating a penguin because I was really hungry. But I didn't, because that's not good. No. Okay, so Sophie from Neville Bonner Primary, how did you get off the ship? You and a
Well,
Shackleton?
it was treacherous to say the least, but no, I think we actually have a little bit of vision of how they got off the ship. So you can imagine.
So someone went along and filmed it.
Documentary while they were down there of the
Right.
expedition itself. So all of this vision is filmed by a famous photographer called Frank Hurley, who.
I love that shot.
I get, yeah, it is a cool shot. You might have heard of. He's done a lot of famous World War One photography.
Right.
Frank Hurley, but he also did a lot of famous Antarctic photography. But you can kind of see them there, just clambering off the ship, grabbing onto ropes and flying down. There's a little bit of vision coming up later where you see they've spread out some sheets and stuff for the dogs to kind of slide off the ship, which I think is coming up soon, or maybe I missed it already.
I think it's still coming up. Yeah.
But you can kind of clamber down. There's lots of ropes and everything on the ship.
You can see all those dogs.
Yeah, you can. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
And you can see
here
how
we go.
thick the ice is around it there.
Yeah.
So they did try for about...
There we go, there's your
there we
sheep.
go. There you go. You can see the dogs coming down.
Whee!
Yeah. So they
That's so
did
interesting,
try, as we can see in the vision there, for about 8 or 10 months that they camped on the ice there trying to... And ready? Bang. There it goes.
Bang.
It's pretty amazing.
So why did that happen?
I don't know. I guess it would have
So
just been the
cold.
wind and the elements
Yeah.
kind of taking over the ship.
Gosh, and for the sea freeze must have been
Yes.
intense temperatures. Yeah.
What were we talking about? Getting off the ship.
Getting off the ship?
So they
Yeah.
camped on the ice for about 8 to 10 months, and that whole time they were trying to dig their way out of the ice. So they really tried to get that ship out of the ice and keep it moving, but the ice was just so thick that they couldn't free the ship.
So Nathaniel from Camp Hill State School says, what was the lowest temperature they had to go through, Cale? Do we know?
Certainly in the negatives. I'm not actually... It would have got... we're talking negative 10s, 20s.
Real
that
cold.
That sort of temperature. Very, very cold.
If not more for the sea to freeze. But I guess when everything is cold and it's windy, I don't know.
Yes.
But it's, wow. Okay, so Caden from Canterbury Primary School says, where did the Endurance sail from? Did we already say that?
No, we didn't. But well, a bit of a journey. So the ship itself was actually built in Norway. And it wasn't originally for Shackleton. It was to do polar expeditions. But the guy who was planning to buy it pulled out at the last second. And so Shackleton was planning this big expedition. He said, yep, I'll buy it. He had bought the ship from Norway for about £11,000. And they actually made a big loss on the ship because the original buyer pulled out. And so it was dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap. Anyone can afford that.
Yeah, they got this ship for.
It would have been still so much.
Yeah.
But obviously not enough for a normal ship.
So it started in Norway, and then Shackleton's expedition took off from Plymouth in the UK, and then sailed all the way down to Buenos Aires in Argentina. And then from Buenos Aires, they went to another island, which was a whaling station nearby to Antarctica. And then from that whaling station, they continued on down to Antarctica. But Shackleton wasn't actually aboard the ship from Plymouth and to Buenos Aires. It was Frank Worsley taking that crew, and Shackleton met them eventually a few weeks later when they arrived in Buenos Aires. But he took a steam-powered boat from Plymouth down to there because he had to sort things out with the expedition back in the UK.
Okay. Oh, we've got hundreds of questions coming in for you, Cale. So,
nice one. Thanks, man.
Do you know how long they were on the ship for? That's from Zena from Cororoit Creek Primary School.
Yeah, so the expedition set sail in 1914. And then I think they left to go to Antarctica in 1915. And then the ship sank in 1916. So they certainly had about 10 months aboard the ship. And then they had another 10 months or so on the ice when the ship got stuck. And then it was another 4 or 5 months after that until they got rescued. So it was a bit of a...
It's a journey.
A bit of a journey,
A bit of a long, drawn-out journey.
Yeah.
AXA from Bankstown West Public School. AXA says, did the dogs have names?
I'm sure they
often
did. Yeah. I'm sure they all had...
You've got to be able to call them. And,
exactly, yeah. I don't know what any of the names were.
No, me neither.
But I'm sure they had some names.
Sure they did, AXA. Okay, so were they carrying like goods and things on the ship? Maxie from Bankstown West Public School was wondering about that. Did it carry any goods on the ship?
In terms of like delivering goods?
Yeah, I think that must be what you mean, Maxie. Or was it very much it was just for the purpose of...
Yeah, well, they would have been carrying food
exploration
and scientific equipment and that sort of thing. What's interesting is, I was talking about before, one ship was going, the Endurance was going where it went, and then the other ship was going around the other side of Antarctica for the initial plan. And what that other ship did was they got off, and they were pretty successful because they got off on their end and then walked kind of halfway between where they were making the land crossing, and then walked back and left all these food supplies for them and everything for their journey through the back half of Antarctica. So that ship was certainly carrying food and supplies and tents and that sort of thing, so that Shackleton could eventually pick them up.
That's cool.
But no such pickup was made.
Didn't work though, yes, of course. Do you know how an icebreaker works? That's from Prakasha from Cororoit Creek Primary School as well.
Yep, it breaks ice.
Just breaks it. Just goes right through.
I would say it's the way that the ship is designed. So it would have somewhat of a pointy hull.
Yes, you always see the pointy hull.
Break through all of the ice.
Yeah. Must I don't know, maybe they put some kind of very strong metals and materials in the front too. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? You might have to go and do some research, Prakasha, and learn a bit more about that. Okay, so we already kind of answered this. Vicky from Bankstown West Public School, who built the Endurance, Norwegian.
Yeah, so it was a Norwegian guy, or Norwegian engineer who built it, in 1912.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so many questions coming through. All right, I'm going to, even though Bankstown West and Cororoit Creek, you've sent us so many amazing questions, I'm going to go to a couple of different schools now. So we really appreciate it though. All right, so Hunter from Neville Bonner says, have they found any photos of the ship yet?
No, they haven't. So yeah, what kind of brought about this whole
Yeah.
story is that there is an expedition going on at the moment in Antarctica that was using those coordinates we spoke about earlier, going to the point where the ship sank, and they're looking for it. So no one's been able to find it.
Yeah, silly me forgetting that the ship actually sank and this was what the story was about. I was too focused on the past.
Yes, they haven't been able to find it ever since. There's been a couple of expeditions who have tried in the past, but no, they haven't uncovered it just yet. They're still searching, so maybe one day soon. They've got about 35 days that they've set themselves at the coordinates to try and find the ship. So we'll see.
So what do you think if they find the boat, will they look for treasure? That's a question from Asaph from Port Noarlunga Primary School. Mr. Herds, hey, thanks for joining us in Mr. Herds 5-6 class.
Good spot for a snorkel.
So, yes, Asaph says, any treasure?
Any treasure? Maybe. Who knows?
Who knows,
what's gonna
Asaph?
be down
Who knows?
there. What are we
Probably
interesting?
not, though, I guess.
Probably not.
Depends what you think a treasure is, because finding a cool old artifact of a very old ship might be a treasure in itself.
Possibly some biological treasures. Is the Weddell Sea is kind of an area that, or the whole Southern Ocean is an area that's certainly not been too, hasn't been too looked into scientifically. So there might be some new creatures or species of invertebrates down deep in the Weddell Sea that we've never found before. So
nice.
You never know.
Maybe living inside the ship.
Maybe living inside the ship.
knows?
Yes.
Kay, why didn't they look for the ship earlier? That's from 56M at Blacksland East Public School. Hello, 56M.
Well, they have. They have.
For a while.
There's been some expeditions in the past to try and find the ship, but the other thing is that it's just really hard. We haven't had the technology, I guess, to search for the ship. So it's about 3,000 metres down to the bottom of the Weddell Sea. So they're using these kind of autonomous vehicles, which means they drive themselves. They don't have a driver, called Sabertooths, and they're essentially these robots that can fly and swim underwater and take photos, but that's a relatively new technology, so I guess we're just catching up with what we're able to do.
Yeah. I actually had questions about the robots, but I've lost them, but I'll come back and find them. So Eve from Camp Hill says, after the scientists have taken photos on the robots, is it likely they will recover the ship in some way?
No. So essentially a little while ago now, there was something signed called the Antarctic Treaty, which means that any old historical artefacts that are found in Antarctica are to be left in Antarctica. So you're essentially not allowed to take anything from Antarctica that you didn't bring there yourself. And so the ship will be left there because it falls under the Antarctic Treaty.
That's so interesting. And if you want to learn a bit more about the Antarctic Treaty, you can check out BTN next week as well.
There you go.
We'll be talking about that. So that's interesting, because wouldn't you consider because he was, what did you say, Scottish? Irish?
Yeah.
Couldn't Ireland go and just take it back then?
I don't know.
Technically, they brought it.
Are you the Antarctic Treaty expert?
I am not.
You're doing the story,
I am
aren't you?
doing the story. That's true, but I didn't actually know that a ship counted as something you can remove.
Can't remember.
You got to go send in an Irish person to be like, all right, I brought this though, I can take it again. Speaking of the ship, Emily from Port Noarlunga from Mr. Herd's class says, why was Shackleton's ship called the Endurance, even though it didn't live up to its name?
It's a good
Very
point,
good point,
isn't
Emily.
it?
Yeah, very good point.
I'm not sure why the etymology of endurance and why it was called that, but it certainly didn't live up to its name.
I imagine they thought it was going to endure a lot more than it perhaps did.
Yes.
Haley has asked a great question, because it's straight to the point, and it's like, oh yeah, we haven't really talked about this. That's Haley, also from Mr. Herd's class. Why are they going to go to find the ship? Why are we wanting to do this, Cale?
Human interest, I guess.
We just like that, Haley. We're just like that.
Yeah, we
like to
it's
know
a
stuff
very
and fun things,
famous and historical shipwreck that hasn't been seen since it first sunk, and I think it kind of just piques a lot of people's curiosity. There's certainly some interest into whether there is any creatures down there that have been eating away at the ship, because scientists don't think anything would have been eating away at the shipwreck. So when a ship sinks in warmer waters, often there's little sea creatures and invertebrates that slowly eat away at all the wood and everything like that. But because it's so cold in the Weddell Sea, scientists think that this shipwreck will be really well preserved and essentially untouched. So that's kind of something interesting as well. But I guess it's just human interest.
Okay, sorry, I got absorbed into all these questions. So many questions. Yes, and also I accidentally have clicked out. Okay, there we go. I'm back, ignore me. Oh no, wait, oh no, guys, do some elevator music while I work out what happens.
Ding.
Here we go, I'm back. I got onto different questions. Yeah, you didn't get much out
No, I didn't get much.
So I've got someone from Rosalie Primary School saying, will the searchers be able to survive in the cold place just like the travellers did?
Hope so. They actually did get stuck in the ice the other day with the expedition while they were down there. They had a few problems getting through that thick pack ice, they call it, because it kind of packs in and around your ship. So it was a bit thicker than they expected. They've freed themselves now. But yes, I think with all of our technological advancements, we've got a few warmer clothes. I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, let's hope so. I'm sure they'll be fine, like you said. Tony from Bankstown West Public School says, what was the crew trying to discover, / association trying to discover?
Yeah, so it was in...
The originals.
Yeah, it was in this time, what is actually classed as the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. And I guess what was happening during that time is it was just a lot of people trying to one-up each other and kind of be the first person to do something down in Antarctica. So we said before that Shackleton was trying to be the first crew to make a land crossing of Antarctica. That was the big goal of the expedition. But he led an expedition earlier aboard a ship called the Nimrod, and that's had the goal of reaching the South Pole. He didn't quite make it, but this age of Antarctic exploration was this time when everyone was just trying to do something for the first time.
So interesting. So from Bankstown West Public School says, why did they need the dogs?
Dogs,
and so many of them.
Yeah.
So many dogs.
So many dogs. I think dogs are really good at, so they're pulling sleds essentially is when they make that land crossing, they need something to be able to pull all of their supplies behind them, and that's what they use the dogs for, is they set up sleds with all of their supplies and the dogs help them out.
Evie Jack from Wimbrell's Homeschool says, I'm sorry that the ship broke when you were reporting. Just midway through. Ruins everything for Cale's Ernest Shackleton. Thanks, Evie. Thanks for the sympathy for Cale there. Okay, oh my gosh, there are so many questions. I don't know if you know this one. This is another Bankstown West. Oh, we have so many questions from you and Coral Creek Primary School, so thank you so much for writing in. How long does it take to get across to cross Antarctica?
Yeah.
Depends how you're going.
Depends how you're doing it.
Yeah. And in what era and what technology.
Exactly. I'm not exactly sure how long he would have set apart for his journey back.
Yeah.
I think it would take a fair while, but I'm not sure.
Not sure. You have to just go and become an explorer in the future, or a researcher, a scientist, and go and attempt to do it. Namisha from Coral Creek Primary School says, how many people died?
Zero,
Namisha.
Biggest tales of survival. One of the grandest and best tales of survival is that everyone in his crew survived.
Yeah. And I think I saw a couple of people asking this, or maybe it was just Suleiman. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, sorry. From Bankstown West Public School, why were they so unprepared? Suleiman wants to know. I know, that's what I was thinking too.
They were prepared.
They were
because
trying.
They all survived.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, they were prepared.
I think the ice in Antarctica can be really unpredictable, and it can be really hard to know whether it's going to be a harsh winter and whether there's going to be really thick ice there. And so that definitely caught them off guard, is how thick and how harsh of a winter it was.
They were doing their best. And a final question I just wanted to ask. I've lost it now, but I saw it before. Someone was wondering if Mawson was on this journey.
No, he wasn't. So he was aboard the Nimrod, which was Shackleton's earlier expedition, the one that tried to reach the South Pole. They didn't make it. They made it to what's known as the magnetic South Pole. He was aboard there, so they were certainly mates, old Morso and Shacko. But then Mawson led the first Australian expedition a few years later.
Yes. So wait, Shackleton wasn't Australian?
No.
Yeah. We did clarify that. I just suddenly thought for a second. So was Shackleton on the one... He wasn't on the one that went horribly wrong, obviously.
Not Mawson's, no.
That was a different Mawson one because... That wasn't so good.
Mawson's
Yes. Okay, there you go. Oh, so many questions. Thank you all so much. Cale did a great job. Round of applause from across Australia for Cale. Don't clap yourself. That's awkward. All right, pat on the back. All right, a bit much now. All right, let's do some really quick shout-outs before we head off. Cale, you know how this goes. You have to have a greeting. Do you know how this goes?
No.
I like to torture people. You have to think of just any greeting to go in between, just short and sharp and shiny. All right, I'm going to go for, some schools. I'm going to miss the schools that we have already asked a lot of questions from, but I'm going to say AGBU Alexander Primary School.
What's cracking, AGBU Alexander Primary School?
You don't have to say the whole name of the school, just say what's cracking.
Okay.
8 Mile Plains State School. I'm at home right now. That was from Hanifa,
Howdy doody.
Okay. He's very, ambitious. Okay, gosh, you're going to rival our Mal. She's pretty good at this. Wollongong.
Hi.
Wimbrell's Home School.
Hello.
Okay, all right, you're running out of those. I've already said, let's do it. Yucca Home School.
Hey, legends.
Rosalie Primary School.
Hey.
GMAS.
Mushy.
Bletchington, sorry.
Guten Tag.
Robert Bloomfield Academy.
Bonjour.
And Maroubra Junction Public School.
Hey.
You already used that, hey, didn't you?
No, I said hi, hello, and hey.
I gotta let that go. Well done, Cale. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we will be back with another Ask a Reporter next Friday. Make sure you check out BTN next week and also BTN Newsbreak every weeknight. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Bye.